So we got down to the bottom of Ayin Daled Amud Beis yesterday, and the discussion we're having right now is to what extent do we consider this fetus part of the mother? So we're discussing the various different prohibitions of an animal. Right, there's in general in an animal there are three things that are prohibited. There's the fats, there's the sciatic nerve, and there's the blood. So we said, according to one opinion, the fats of the baby are considered the fats of the mother. The sciatic nerve of the baby is considered the sciatic nerve of the mother, meaning they're not in the place of, they're not, since it's considered part of the mother, not part of the baby. The baby is just part of the mother itself. Fats are only the fats in the abdomen are forbidden. Fats in the baby are not in the mother's abdomen, so they're not forbidden. The sciatic nerve is only problem in the leg. It's not in the leg of the mother, so therefore it's not forbidden. When it comes to blood, though, we said blood is forbidden anywhere. So why should the blood of the baby be any different? We said we had a certain opinion that said that only certain types of blood. Right, since the baby doesn't have life blood, then you don't have the rest of the blood. The rest of the blood is not called blood either. I mean, the question, is the baby considered a sheep for redemption purposes? Let's say you have a baby that comes out live. You have a donkey. You need to redeem the firstborn donkey with a sheep. Can you use this baby as the sheep to redeem a donkey? And we say, right, we end up saying yes. I mean, then the last question we had was, what about Tuma? So when it comes to Tuma, is it considered to be part of the mother or is it independent? I mean, let's say the mother becomes Tame. Do we say this baby, while it's still alive, is it Tame for having touched the mother, or do we say no, it's alive and it's really independent? That was the last question. I think let's start from that. So I think we did a little bit of this, but let's start right there. 8 lines up from the bottom. 6 lines into where it gets wide, 8 lines from the bottom. See, Iboilahu, they asked the question, Mahu limnos bo rishon masheni. What is halacha to count it first degree and second degree of tuma? Contact, if it becomes in contact with something that's tame, what is the halacha? What is the halacha about being tame while it's alive? Yochanan Omer, Monin bo rishon masheni. You count on the tuma. Shimon Lakish Omer, in Monin bo rishon masheni. No, it can't become tame. Can't become tame at all because it's alive. Now, Basar, what's it called? Nasa ke'egos and miskasha is v'kliposo. It's like a nut in its shell. I'm sorry, he's saying sorry. I had it right the way I said yesterday, not the way I said that. I thought I had it backwards. I had it right yesterday, not today. That you count the first. Rabbi Yochanan says you count it independently of the mother. So the mother is a rishon and the baby is a sheni, secondary tuma. Rabbi Yochanan says no, it's all one thing. The baby's part of the mother, so the mother's tummy, the baby's tummy is same as the mother. It's not independent. It's a challenge that Rishon Lakish, the Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish, who says it's the same as the mother, challenges Rabbi Yochanan. And Basar Magan Avela, Derei Meir. The flesh of the animal, when it had its arm stuck out, when it slaughtered the mother, they chopped out the arm, the baby is considered to have touched an Avela. It's having touched an animal that was slaughtered, but it was injured. So it's fine according to me, I consider one body. It's kosher, but dama de'ima. That in order for food to become tameh, it has to first come into contact with the 7 liquids. So if you say that the baby and the mother are one thing, then the mother bled. Since the mother bled, the blood when you slaughter the mother, that's called touching liquid, its own blood, and then the baby is considered to be muksher, prepared, so the baby can become a tameh. According to you that say the baby is independent, but it's independent of the mother, my iskashar. In in what sense? What made it? What gave it hechsher? What gave it the ability to become tamei? Amalei says in b'shchita, the slaughtering itself, even without the contact with the blood, Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon holds that the act of being slaughtered, that automatically makes an animal prepared for tumah. So you don't actually touch blood. Just the fact it was slaughtered, that automatically makes it prepared. So even though it's not part of the mother, but since the slaughtering of the mother counts for the baby is for sure prepared. Rabbi Yochanan challenges Rish Lakish. Over Benar, you have this live animal crosses the river. Huksha, it's now been prepared to get prepared, so it can become tamei. This animal is walking around in a cemetery. Nitma, the flesh is tamei. So it's fine according to me, Damina Trey Gufin that I say that two separate bodies, Mishum Haki, because of that, Huksha in Lo Huksha. Only if it's prepared, they can become tamei. If it went to the cemetery without having gone in the water first, that's not going to be tamei. But if it went in the water on the way to the cemetery, that's what makes it tamei, because it wasn't prepared before it was born. According to you, that you say the mother and the baby are one thing, it's kasher b'tamata imei. Then it should have been prepared for the blood of the mother. It's all one thing, the mother bled. And since the mother bled, then the mother is prepared, and the baby's of the same body, the baby's prepared. So the answer is B'shchita yiveshta, in a dry slaughtering, in place we slaughter the mother and not a single drop of blood came out. It's a loka Rabbi Shimon, and not like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon said the act of slaughtering makes an animal prepared. He's saying, we're talking about a case where there's no blood, and not like the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says you don't need blood. Rabbi told you do need blood. So we're not going with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. The opinion of the rabbis that you don't need blood, and that's why this animal was not prepared. But really, in a normal case, where there is blood, then the animal will be prepared, and the baby does not. The baby will be prepared. The baby does not need to come into contact with some liquids after that. It's been prepared already. So we want to ask Tana, which Tana says Avar Banar Huksha that went into the water and became tamei? When it goes to the cemetery, it's tamei. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yossi Galili. It's according to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Galili. The Tanya says in the Brayso, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Amar Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Yossi Galili. Also says in the name of Yossi Galili, this live animal that was considered halachically slaughtered is tamei tumah of food. Sorry, heksha, but it needs to be prepared to become tamei. The reason the saying it cannot become tamei as food because it's living. Anything that's alive is not a food, cannot become prepared as a food, even though it's halachically slaughtered. But it's all physically alive, it can't become tamei until it's slaughtered. As long as it's alive, it can't become tamei. For us, Rabbi Yochanan is following his own reasoning. Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Yossi Glili, Rabbi Shammai, Amar Davar Echad. Yossi Glili and Rabbi Shammai line up. Yossi Glili, Hada Amar. What did Rabbi Yossi Glili say? We just said that the animal can become, that the animal can become tamei while it's alive. So Beishamai said the same thing. So what did Beishamai say? Beishamai da'atan, it says in the Mishnah, dagim, a fish, me'emezai mekablin tuma. When can the fish become tamei? Beishamai omer, Beishamai says, mishi yitzuda. By the time you've trapped them, the fish are considered to be dead, even though they're still alive and well. You could throw them back in the water and they'd live. But since you pull them from the ocean, pulling them out of the ocean or the river or whatever, that is called slaughtering them. They're halachically slaughtered even though they're physically alive. And therefore they can become tamei. So you see that for the fact that Rabbi Yochanan says Beis Shammai and Rabbi Yossi Galili line up, that tells us that the explanation of Rabbi Yossi Galili is that even though it's alive, when it's considered slaughtered, then it can become tamei. That's the reasoning behind Rabbi Yossi Galili. Right, so that's what Beis Shammai holds. It says Mishimusu, when the fish actually dies, only then it can become tamei. Kiva Omer says Mishasha ein yachon lechios, from the point that it can no longer live. So even right, so when it says my benai, what's the difference between when it's dead and it can no longer live? Amar Yochanan dag mekarta ikavinai. You have a fish that's spasming still. It's dried out to the point that cannot survive, but it's still spasming. The person's opinion, Rabbi Hill says, has to actually be dead, still alive. The Kiva says the opinion can no longer live it can't live. It's already, it's been morally dried out, but the fact it's still spasming, that it cannot become tama yet, according to Rabbi Kiva. Boy, Rav Chisda. Chisda asked a question. No du badagim siman treifa mal. If the fish develops features that make it a treifa. Now, fish cannot be treifas. Fish is wounded, it makes no halachic difference, you can still eat it. Question is, if the animal has been mortally wounded, we're going to say this animal is halachically dead, that you could even eat it, then. And become tummy then. So normally, what's the halacha if it has signs of being a treifa? Tiboy laman damar, you can ask another question, treifa chaya, that treifa can live. Tiboy laman damar, treifa ain't chaya. You can even ask a question according to the opinion that a treifa can't live. Let's explain. Tiboy laman damar, treifa chaya. You ask a question according to the opinion that treifa can live. Behemahu, when it comes to a land animal, that makes sense that treifa lives in a fish that has a lot of life force in it. While dogging a fish, alone a fish that their life force is much weaker, low, then it wouldn't be called alive anymore. Once it's been mortally wounded, it's already called dead. Or Dilmer, perhaps the other way, a mortally wounded animal cannot live, and so to mortally wounded fish cannot live. Still, hani mili behemoth, that's only true about an animal, that we say that it's halachically considered to be somewhat dead already. That has in it a concept of slaughtering. About dagim, when it comes to fish, there's no such thing as slaughtering. Low, then being mortally wounded makes no difference. I think what it's saying is the opposite. So an animal that's mortally wounded is still alive. That's because the animal, what's the other way? The animal even in one that, according to opinion, an animal is the animal is considered dead. That's only by an animal, because the concept of shechita by an animal, since we see that there's such a thing as a living dead animal, we slaughter an animal, the animal is considered to be dead, even though it's walking around according to everybody. And that doesn't usually walk far, but chickens can walk around for a while. So a chicken, it can run around for a while still. But it's luckily dead. That's by an animal that there's such an shechita. You see there's such a thing as being living dead. So treifa could also be like that. But fish, if no concept of being slaughtered and still being slaughtered and still moving around, there's no such thing. So maybe you'd say there, the animal, this fish got sick, it would not be halachically dead yet. And we say teku. We don't have an answer to this question. Next question. Hitila nefel. If an animal gave birth to a stillborn, Yochanan Omer, Yochanan says, chelev behema. The fat is like the fat of a domesticated animal, meaning it's forbidden. The animal is born, even though it was born dead, but the animal is an animal, and therefore its fats are fats. But the moment it's born, it's forbidden. As long as inside the mother, fats are not fats, but when it's born, the fats are fats. The fats are fat like a wild animal, which is not prohibited. The fats are not fats until it's actually born. It was born dead. It's not called being born. So let's explain. Yochanan says the fats are the fats of a domesticated animal that are forbidden. Avir gorim, just the mere presence outside the mother, that causes to be called an independent animal, such that its fat is forbidden. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, the fats of a wild animal, meaning they are not non-kosher. Chadashim garmo, it's months cause it, meaning the animal being at full gestation and being born at full, born in a viable way, that is what makes a fat fat. But as long as it's born prematurely and dies, the fats are not fats. Ikita Amri, there are those that say, Kol Hecha, the low Kal Chadashav, any case that it was born before the end of term, before its full term, it's called Kal Chadashav, its months finished off. Anytime it's born early, low Klum, it's Evan agrees not born. Right? Unless it's born in a way that it theoretically could be viable, then it's not called born and the fat is not forbidden. So what are they arguing about? Talking about a person that stuck his hand inside the babe, inside the mother. And he took the fat out of a living baby, 9-month baby. So the fetus is still alive. And he did a surgical procedure and removed the fat from the baby before it was born. The baby is still alive and well inside the mother. Removed the fat from inside the mother. The baby was never born. And ate it. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Chelev ben tes chai." The fat is like the fat of a living 9-month animal, and therefore is not prohibited. I skipped a line. I went back a line. The fat is like the fat of a domesticated animal. Chadashim gamer, though the fact that the months were done, that's enough. It is prohibited. The fat of a wild animal, that's a full term, and it has to actually be born. For the fat to be called fat, being full term is not enough. Rabbi Yochanan challenged Reish Lakish. He's saying the fat is not going to be called fat until it's born. That's what he wants to prove. What's special about the fat and the 2 kidneys that said about asham? Motmi klal shalil are excluded from an amniotic sac, from a fetus, because an asham is a male animal. If asham is a male animal, then you're never going to find the fat of an amniotic sac of an asham. It's male. Males don't give birth. So just like we find that there's no such thing as fat on the baby in asham, so too in every other animal, it's excluded from being a shlil. You don't have to put the fat of the baby on the mizbeach. Right? All the fat, when you have a carbon, take all the chelev and put it on the mizbeach. So you have a carbon that's pregnant. You have to put the fat of the baby on the mizbeach because it's part of the mother. So we say no, we don't have from asham. Just like an asham, it can never be pregnant. So you never put the fat of the asham on the mizbeach. So too every other carbon, even if it's female, still will run out from the asham. I cannot put the fat of the baby on the mizbeach. So Rabbi Yehuda says, "B'shlon lady, it's fine according to me. Shemchachi read me at Ramana." That's why the Torah says the fat is not fat. That's according to me. The fat of the baby is not fat till it's born. That's why we have a verse telling us that this fat is not called fat. And according to you, the karif. So I skipped a bunch of lines. I skipped the right line. It's fine according to me that I say the fat's kra. The fat is so the fat is fat, right? The fat is fat before it's born. That's why I need a verse to tell us that the fat is not. You don't put the fat in his mizbeach. In this version, Rabbi Yochanan says the fat is fat. So the fact that a baby is full term, that means the fat is fat, and therefore I need a verse to say, don't put it on his mizbeach. It makes sense to me. So behind it, you need a verse to tell us, don't put it on his mizbeach. According to you, you say the fat is not fat till it's actually born. Why do we need a pasuk to tell us that this fat should not be put in his mizbeach? It's not fat. See, Amalei says back, my reasoning comes from here. And why do I say the fat's not fat till it's born? For the fact the Torah doesn't say put it in his mizbeach. The Torah says don't put it in his mizbeach. That's how I know the fat's not fat. It's not that I knew the fat's not fat, and therefore I don't put it in. Therefore I wouldn't need a verse to tell us that you can't put it in his mizbeach. Torah says don't put it in his mizbeach. For the fact the Torah says don't put it in his mizbeach, from there I conclude that the fat's not fat till it's born. So it's not extra. Vikri Da'amri, there are those that say the opposite proof from the Brisa. Esa Shimon Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Shimon Lakish is the same exact Brisa, challenge Rabbi Yochanan. Ma'achel v'shtei kolayos amuras ba'asham. Just like you know that the fat and the kidneys of an asham, exclude from being a fetus, because asham can't have a fetus. Avkol motzim miklal shlil. Everything, so to everything excludes the shliach. You don't need to put the fat of the fetus on the mizbeach. It's fine according to me. Mishum haki miyad rachmana. That's what the Torah says. Don't put it on because it's not called fat. Since it's not called fat, that's why there's no obligation to put it in the mizbeach. According to you, hold the fat of the baby is called fat. They carve. They should have to put it in the mizbeach. Why does the Torah say don't do it? So Amar Lei, he sent it back. We didn't have a mechusas man, similar to what we find when an animal that's too young. The rule is that carbon is not kosher the 8th day. So you don't put, if we slaughter, you won't put the fat of that animal on the mizbeach. It's not fit to be a carbon. Even though, in terms of classification, there's real no difference between the less than 8-day-old carbon and the 8-day-old carbon. Nevertheless, the Torah says you can't put it on the mizbeach. Same thing here. Even though, yes, this fat is fat, so it says this is not the fat you're obligated to put on the mizbeach. Yes, it's fat, but it's not the fat that's obligated on the mizbeach. That's why you don't put it, even though, but it is still categorized as fat. New case, Amar Rabbi says, a shochet is a treifa. You slaughtered a wounded animal. Matzah ben tes chai. You found a living 9-month baby. So normally we said if we slaughter the mother, and the mother is a kosher animal, then the baby is part of the mother. The baby is also kosher. Baby, if he didn't slaughter the mother, right? Then the baby is right. Then the baby's completely independent. We're not talking about that. We slaughtered the mother, but that was the machlokes. Rabbi Meir said the baby's not been slaughtered. You have to slaughter the baby later, and the rabbi said you don't have to slaughter the baby later. The baby was slaughtered inside the mother. So he's saying the one who says normally when you slaughter the mother, the baby is considered slaughtered. Here we're going to say it's usher because this mother wasn't kosher. And since the mother wasn't kosher, the slaughtering of the mother can't prevent the baby. The baby is going to be forbidden, and you can't even slaughter it later because it's already dead. It's so the mother's a treifa, the baby's going to be a treifa, even though the baby itself is totally fine. The baby's going to become a treifa together with the mother. Even slaughtering the baby later won't help. Matir Oser, and the one according to the opinion of Meir, to the other. So I said it backwards. That's the second. That's Matir Oser. It says it's normally permitted, it's forbidden. The opposite, Meir says it's forbidden normally because if slaughtering the mother doesn't help the baby. I'll say here that the baby is permitted because you can still slaughter it. It has not considered slaughtered at all yet. Rava says no. Even the divrei hamatir na'im motor. Even according to the one that says slaughtering the mother helps the baby, it's still permitted here. The Torah permitted 2 sets of necks for this baby. So you could slaughter the mother, and that would help the baby. But if slaughtering the mother doesn't help the baby, then you can still slaughter the baby. The baby's only considered dead in so much as we want to consider it dead. Okay, so that it's more kosher if the animal is not viewed as part of the mother, and view it as not part of the mother, and you can slaughter the baby independently. So Amar Rav Chista, Shochet es a treifa, slaughtered a wounded animal, Matzah ben tes chai, and found a living 9-month baby. Ta'on shchita, you have to slaughter it. And it's obligated in the gifts to the Kohen. Whenever you slaughter an animal, you have to do the Kohen the arm, the cheek, including the tongue, and the cave is part of the stomach. The mace, and if it dies, it's not tamei as an avela. So this animal is slaughtered already, even though the mother was wounded. So you have to slaughter it, but yet if it dies, it's not tamei. So why is that? What is he saying? He's saying that he slaughtered the mother, and the mother's wounded. The baby is no worse than the mother. So the mother is not an avela because it's been slaughtered. So this baby has been slaughtered up to the point that it's not an avela, cannot become an avela. Even if it dies later, the baby cannot become an avela because it's been slaughtered, but it's only been slaughtered halfway. Since the mother was not kosher, the baby's not kosher. What do you now? Now you slaughter the baby, and now the baby's going to be kosher. but if you don't slaughter the baby dies without being slaughtered, at the very least it's not going to be available. Did you follow that?
Yeah, sort of.
So the animal's alive and not alive. Meaning when they slaughter the mother and the mother's kosher, then the rabbis hold the animal's slaughtering the animal's kosher. But if you slaughter the mother turns out not to be kosher. Shechita was a good shechita, but the animal itself wasn't kosher. So when it comes to shechita of an animal that's not kosher, so the fact that it was slaughtered makes the animal not tameh. The animal has not been slaughtered and it dies, the animal's tameh. It's an avail. To slaughter it, it'll never be an avail, it'll only be a treifa. Treifa is not usually tameh, except by sacrifices. So this opinion is saying you slaughter the mother, and the mother turns out to be a treifa. You can't say the baby's was slaughtered and is kosher. The baby is only considered slaughtered in as much as an extension of the mother. So the mother wasn't kosher, the baby can't be kosher. So you have to slaughter the baby. But he says if you do slaughter the baby, that counts. Since the baby is right now not slaughtered in a kosher way, still the opportunity to slaughter the baby and make the baby kosher. But if you don't slaughter the baby dies. Since the baby was part of the mother and the mother's a treifa, and therefore is not tameh, then this baby will not become tameh as an avela because it was already slaughtered with the mother. There's no worse than the mother. The mother's sort of halfway slaughtered, the baby's halfway slaughtered, finish slaughtering it, you slaughter slaughtered by itself, it's slaughtered. If you don't slaughter it, then it's not slaughtered. Then it's slaughtered with regards to toma, but not with regards to eating it. So you basically get the best of both worlds in this case. It's not tameh, and you could even slaughter and make it kosher. So come on, who does this follow? Karbanan, like the rabbis that say you slaughter the mother, then the baby is slaughtered, and still we say that this baby is permitted. You can slaughter it and make it permitted. So you see that this is like Rish Lakish, who said that, not Rish Lakish, okay, this is like Rabbi Ami, who says that the opinion that says it's normally usher. Hold on. I don't think I skipped. I'm messing with it. Come on, Rabbanan. This is like the rabbis who say that slaughtering the mother helps, and you see here that it's permitted. Well, that's what it is, right? So it's a proof to a second opinion. Proof to Rabbi Simon. The proof to proof to Rava. Rava said that this animal has two necks, four sets of four pipes. So slaughtering the mother counts, and slaughtering the baby counts. It's double slaughtering. So the same animal twice. That's a great cribbage question. In what case can you slaughter the same animal twice? So when you slaughter the mother, this animal is slaughtered with regards to not being tameh. So the baby, now it's actually murdi. So you see, like Rava, who says that the animal has two necks. And hold on a second. Time out when you're reasoning. Hadatani Rabbi Yehuda taught in the brisa. Shochet es hatreifa. Someone slaughters a treifa. Matzah ben teschai. And you found a living animal. Ton shchita. He has to slaughter it. And it's obligated in the gifts to the Kohen, the arm, the cheek, and the stomach. If he makes him dies, and it is pure, cannot become tummy as an avela. Ton shchita requires shchita, come on. Oh, I did skip something. You're right, I did skip something. I skipped, yeah. Okay, Omer Rava. Second line on the top of the page. Omer Rava. Rava says to Rabbi Yehuda that in ton shchita requires slaughtering. Why does it require slaughtering? Come on. Rabbi Meir. Like Rabbi Meir, who says that the animal inside the mother, the slaughtering of the mother does not help the baby. It makes tahor, but if it's dead, it's pure. Matame masa from being tame as an avela. That means from carrying it. Come on, karabanan. That's like the opinion of the rabbis who say that it does not need shchita. So the Tamecha, it says back to Rav, according to your reasoning, the Bryce of Rabbi Yehuda says, Shochet is treifa matzah by ben teschai. If someone slaughters an animal and finds a living 9-month animal in it, ton shchita. It's obligated in slaughtering. V'chayv is roel l'chayim l'keva, and it's and obligated in the gifts to the kohanim, the arm, the sheik, and the stomach. It makes tar with a masa. If it dies without being slaughtered, it is pure. So ton shchita requires slaughtering. Come on, like whom? Like Rei Meir. It makes tar with a masa. If it dies, it's not tamei as in vela. Karabanan is like the rabbis. So the same question. You ask the question me. You can't ask the question on Mechia. Mechia is forced to reckon with. He's borderline Tana. What are you going to do about that? So no halo kasha. That's not a kasha. You don't, from the way Rabbi Yehuda says it, you don't see that the animal, you're talking about this animal died. You slaughter the mother and the animal's alive, and then it died. You don't see that. From the language he says, it says V'im Meis Tahor. But the way he started, right, just the way Rabbi Yehuda said it, it leaves open the possibility that it's two different cases, not a continuation of the first case. The way Rabbi Yehuda said it has to be a continuation of the first case. The way Rabbi Yehuda said it does not have to be a continuation of the first case. Meaning, let's read Rabbi Yehuda again. Rabbi Yehuda says, if someone slaughters a wounded animal, and if the baby entire was alive, then ton shchita has to be slaughtered, and it's obligated in the gifts. The mace, and if it's dead, what does it mean if it's dead? If it was already dead, what you found was dead, then tamei masa. Then it is not tamei. Two different cases, not a continuation of the same case, and therefore it's not a problem. But Rav Yehuda said it's all one case. Rav Yehuda said, slaughtered the mother and found a living baby in it. It's obligated, it has to be slaughtered, and it's obligated, and if it dies afterwards, masa. How do you know it's all one case in Rav Yehuda? I guess just they knew. I don't know, because the language is almost the same. Meis tahor. Almost the exact same language, but that's just somehow. So what we knew Rav Yehuda was saying it's pure even after it was pure, even if it was born alive. But Rav Yehuda, you don't have to say that. Rav Yehuda, you could say it's two different cases. Since it's two different cases, then it's not a contradiction. So, but Malo kasha is not a problem. Rabbi Yehuda kfar matzu meis kamar, because you can say the case of Rabbi Yehuda as if it's dead already. In according to you, kasha. According to you, it's a problem that it's considered slaughtered for the tama, but not slaughtered. But you can still slaughter again to make it kosher. Amalei says back with didi nami lo kasha. It's not a problem to me. Also, dalat samanim aksher be rachmana. Torah permitted 2 sets of necks on it for pipes. And therefore, it's the best of both worlds. It's already slaughtered, and you can slaughter it again. It's already slaughtered for tumah. It's slaughtered again to make it permitted to eat. He saw like Reb Zera came up. Ashkenaz the Rabbi Asi found Rabbi Asi the Yosef Kamer Leila Hashmatz. He said over this whole discussion. The Yoshe said it well. Rabbi Yochanan also agreed. Now Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish are constantly talking to each other. So if you say Rabbi Yochanan agreed, and he left out Reish Lakish, it seems to imply Reish Lakish argued. Right, the Lakish. That implies that Reish Lakish argued, because he said, and Rabbi Yochanan said the same thing. Rabbi Yochanan said, but not Reish Lakish, it means Reish Lakish argued, because if they both agreed, say, Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, you'd say they both agreed. Said, no. And the little gives a change. Mishta hava shasilei shaziglei. You know, when Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara comes up, the same phrase comes up several places in Shas. When Rabbi Yochanan said this halacha, Reish Lakish was having a drink. He's in the middle of drinking. So he didn't say he agreed. He didn't say he disagreed, but he didn't say he agreed. So we don't know what Reish Lakish holds about this matter. Normally, we say Rabbi Yochanan said something, and Reish Lakish doesn't agree. That means Reish Lakish argued. But in this particular case, then Reish Lakish happened to be taking a drink, and therefore the fact his silence is insignificant because it wasn't silence on purpose. Or another version, there's the same Misha Havashasi Le Vishasi Clay. Havashasi Vishasi Clay. No, I had it backwards. The first opinion was the second opinion said he was taking a drink. First version, he was waiting for Yochanan to finish this saying. Yochanan was saying a whole long list of things that he holds, and Rabbi Lakish didn't interrupt him to say that he argued or say that he agreed. We don't know which. And therefore, he did not respond until Yochanan finished. By the time Yochanan responded, by the time Yochanan finished, give Reish Lakish a chance to respond, then the listener already left the room. He just doesn't know what Reish Lakish said. Normally, if Rabbi Yochanan said something and he doesn't say that Reish Lakish agreed, it means he knows for a fact Reish Lakish disagrees. But in this case, he left the room before Rabbi Yochanan had a chance to finish talking, and therefore we don't know. His silence is not significant. Okay, continuing. Rabbi Shimon ben Shazuri Omer, this is going back to the Mishnah. Shimon Shazuri says, Omer Filu ben Chamesh Shanim v'chodesh b'sadeh. If an animal 5 years old and fly in the field, then then the slaughtering of the mother counts for the baby. So Shimon Shazuri, so he said, Hainu Tanakama, it's the same as Tanakama. Tanakama says you slaughter the mother, the baby's permitted. Shimon Shazuri says even when it's 5 years old, the baby's permitted. What's the difference? Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Hifris al gavi karki igmenayu. The animal walks on the ground, that's what they're arguing about. That Rabbi Shimon Shazuri says, we don't make any decree, this animal is always considered slaughtered. You don't have to, even when it grows up, you don't have to slaughter it. Rabbi is saying, the second this animal walks on the ground, it doesn't, people aren't going to realize that it was slaughtered already, and rabbinically going to have to slaughter it again. Amar Rav Masharsha, according to the opinion that says that we view an animal as having paternity, ben pekua habal behema melaisa, you have an animal, the father is a ben pekua animal, the father is inside the mother when the mother was slaughtered, and therefore the animal is considered slaughtered. He has relations with a regular animal. This baby has no way to permit it. It's already half slaughtered because the father, if it's not slaughtered by the mother, there's no way to permit it. Abai says a kol modim. Everyone agrees, but colored ben pekua. If you have a one-toed, a non-kosher footed ben pekua, so a cow gives birth to a cow with camel feet, that Evan agrees that is so startling. It's permitted. My time was reason. Anything that's surprising, people remember. If we don't make it, you have to make a decree. You have to slaughter this baby because everyone's going to remember it. People remember. There's a say. Amar Abai says the kol modim bekalut ben kaluta ben pekua shemuter. That if the baby has only one toe and the mother has only one toe, then people remember that people remember. My time a trade to me. Two weird things you remember. One, people and people. One crazy thing people might forget. But something that's double crazy that people remember, and therefore we do not make a decree on this case to say that once the animal walks around, you have to slaughter it. And remember that this baby does not need to be slaughtered. Amar Zeri, Amar Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Zeri says, Rabbi Chanina says, Rabbi Shimon Shazuri. Like Rabbi Shimon Shazuri. And Rabbi Shimon Shazuri, Matir, no, Venbido, Atov Koladoros. And so too, not only did Rabbi Shimon Shazuri permit this animal, but there are two Ben Pekua animals that get married, their children, and then their grandchildren, etc. As long as every single ancestor is a Ben Pekua, then they do not require slaughtering for all future generations. Rabbi Yochanan Amar says, "Who mutter? The baby is permitted, No also, but the baby's baby is prohibited. That he had a ben bekua animal, was born, he was slaughtered before he was born, and it walked out alive. The nafal duba alay, that a bear attacked it. Also, look at Rav Ashi. Went in front of Rav Ashi. Amar zil shakti, go slaughter it. He said back, Amar Ziri, Amar Bechina, halach Rishim Mishizuri. Halach is like Rishim Mishizuri, it doesn't need to be slaughtered. In a Shuzmati Bevno, Ven Beno. Atzof Kol Hadoros. It's all, finished from all generations. You don't need to slaughter it. Vafila Rabbi Yochanan, Lo Kamer Ela Beno. Rabbi Yochanan disagrees, only said about the child of the Ben Bekua. Well, Iu, lo, but he agrees that but the animal itself doesn't need to be slaughtered. Omalei Rabbi Yochanan would say back, he said back to him that Rabbi Yochanan the Divrei Rishim Mizuri Ka'amar. He's explaining the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Mizuri. He's not saying that he holds like that. He's explaining the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Mizuri. For Amar Ravin Barchanina, Amar Ula, but Ravin Barchanina says the name Ula, Amar Bachanina says the name Bachanina. Like Rabbi Shimon Mizuri, like follows like Rabbi Shimon Mizuri. Not only that, any place of Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah, follows the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Mizuri. So you see, the animal should be permitted. Amarle, he says back, Anak Yihasirli, I hold like the following. To Amar Rabbi Yonasan, Yonas says, Halach Rabbi Shimon Mizuri b'Mesukan. Halach is Rabbi Shimon Mizuri about a wounded animal, an animal that you not morning wounded animal you worried might die soon. If a truma is meiser, shall demai. And the case of truma, the tithe of something that is in doubt whether it has been tithed. Okay, let's just see. The first Masukin. What's the case of Masukin that we say to Lachal Rishon Missouri? Tan says in the Mishnah, they used to say, not to an animal that's in danger, not to a person in danger. A yotze b'koller, someone who went out to be executed, is going, out basically with noose around his neck. For Amar on his way out, says, "Kasvu get," said, "Write a get for my wife." We don't know what happened to him. Leashed it to my wife. He said, "Write it and give it," even though he only commissioned to be written. He didn't say give it. Nevertheless, we say that he meant give it. Chazir Lomar, they went back later on. They said, "Avam Afrish." Someone who goes on a sea trip, goes on a long caravan. Shimon Shizuri Omer, Shimon says, "Af Hamasukan." Even someone who's in death's row, someone who's about on the verge of dying, such a person also we will say that if he says write a get, we'll see he means write and give. In that case, he passes Shimon Shizuri, but not in this case. And then there's another case he passes Shimon Shizuri. It's quickly just 2 lines. Trumas Ma'aseh Demai. What's the case of the tithe of something in doubt, whether it's in tithe already? Time Trumas Ma'aseh Demai. So you have something that's not sure tithe. You tithe the first tithe. You took the tithe of the tithe, and then it went back and got mixed in. Even on a weekday, you can ask the original owner, had you tithe this already? And you can trust him. Since anyway, tithing is a stringency, and because most people tithe, and on Shabbos, for sure you can trust him, because the Amarts won't lie on Shabbos. You ask him, did you tithe it? On Shabbos, he won't lie to you. But a weekday, he might lie. Nevertheless, in this case, they're lenient and say you can trust him. You can rely on it and ask him, was the tithe already? If he says it's tithe already, you don't have to worry about the tithe of the tithe getting mixed in, and then for the only Kohen could eat it. You can rely on him and say that it's okay.
Not bad.
Yeah.